So when we talk about UDL for all, and in designing kind of strategies to remove barriers, I think sometimes we focus on the academics, and I think a lot of times we know that technology can help provide multiple means of representation, right? And we know that it's important for our students to have these tools so that they can process the content. And we know how important it is to use these tools. However, I'm going to say that engagement, sometimes when we skip over and we just go right to the representation of the content and the academics, I think we skip over that engagement, right? That engagement piece. And so if we're trying to evaluate the relevance and the effectiveness of this, it's very difficult if you don't have collaboration and that relationship with the family and the community surrounding that student, right? And so that's kind of, and that can lead to a situation where if there's not a upfront relationship building and that kind of that trust with the families, that you trust them to kind of provide input on this decision making, then down the road may not be getting feedback from them as well, and then you might stick with a kind of a resource or a tool just for the sake of all the work that went into picking it, but yet they're not giving you the feedback that you need to say that that's really not working for them. They're not using it at home, and they might just be using it at school just because that's all they know, right? So Kathy, can you think of a time where a student was using it at school but using something completely different at home?
Absolutely. Oftentimes something we forget about is the cultural aspects of things. Different cultures have different expectations, or I don't know even what you want to call it, but it's different in a home for using the technology. For a lot of my students with English language learners, we had to make sure that things were dual languaged so that we could involve the family. But there are often times when the family was like, this is our spot in life, whatever you want to call it, was our resources in life were to help this child with a disability, and they didn't necessarily ask them to do different things on their own. They weren't looking for that independence. And sometimes it's really hard, but we have to look at that and say that is what the family wants, and we have to kind of respect that and kind of go on from there. So in school, this is what we need them to do, and at home you can do this. So you really do have to kind of walk that line. But yeah, the engagement is, if and that's where I think that goes back to that research piece, that we want them to have an understanding of why we need this. And this is where progress monitoring comes into effect too. When we can say, look, your son or daughter can do X, Y, and Z with this technology. Without this technology, X, Y, and Z takes too much energy, because it's not just getting the task done, it's getting the task done efficiently and effectively.
Right, without expending so much energy that they have nothing left for any other subjects or any other maybe things they need to get done, correct?
Yeah, I talk a lot about, you only have so much gas in the tank every day. All of us only have so much fuel. So if we use up all of our fuel, trying to get these 3 math programs done as independently as possible, what happens to the rest of the day?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we do 1 independently, and then 2 we have a little bit more help with, whatever it happens to be. But yeah, getting people on board and making them understand that it's the self-worth, that if I can do this on my own, I'll feel better about it, I think is a huge part of this.
Right. And then there's something to be said about, yeah, if I can get this done, there's that self-worth. But then if I can get it done in a timely manner that allows me to do other things, I might still have the same self-worth, right? Or even more. right?
Right.
But if I spend all my energy on these and I got them done, I might feel good that I got them done, but then I might not feel good that I didn't have any energy to get the other things done. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So how do we get how can families help in these situations? So when I was attending this webinar and this web series, they really talked about one of the things that districts should want to know what their limitations are, right? Or what they're not doing well. Yes, we want to tout all the amazing things that all our educators are doing and the district is doing. I am a huge advocate for districts really sharing out as much as possible all the amazing things that are going on. However, we need to be also honest with ourselves, and I think families can help shed a light on some of the hurdles that exist, right? I can remember my district, we went through this huge website redesign, right? And a parent asked me, "Hey, can we go out for a burger and a beer? I'll buy you a." I'm like, "Sure," because he was on the kind of a panel, and he was like, "I have an issue with the website," because he's like, "I can't even though we're modernizing it, we're making it better. I still can't find the three things that I just want most, and I use most often." And I go with that 3-click rule. Like Amazon and Netflix understand that if you can't find it in 3 clicks, and so that just becomes a barrier, right? And so that was a hurdle, right, that the parent had. I think families can help because younger parents or even seasoned parents who have been finding solutions for their children for years, they will have some tech savviness in areas that maybe their general ed teachers or even special ed teachers don't have, right? So that could be a huge way that family can help. And then how are they managing AT at home, right? How are they, if we have that insight, if we have that information and we're data sharing and we're sharing what's going on in school and they're sharing what's going on at home, it just builds a better picture for the IEP team to kind of find solutions. And my big aha moment is I asked a student why they stopped using an app I set up for them. And they basically responded that it didn't work well on their phone, right? It worked well in school. They found out that their friend was using a different app on an iPhone and they were using Android. And then they convinced their parents to switch to the iPhone, and now they didn't need my resource anymore. And so that was an aha moment of like, wow, had I been more in touch with the family, kind of got that constant feedback that Kathy had mentioned earlier, then I may not have spent so long or maybe waited so long to kind of maybe look at what we can change out in the school, right? Because they can't always use their phone in the school. Any thoughts on that, Kath?
Well, yeah, you just think about when you went back a few slides and we're talking about, what like the state statute and things when getting that student involved, getting that kid involved in the assessment process. I think that that's a huge part of this, and the family. What are your goals for your son or daughter? What is your son or daughter's goal? And having them a part of that assessment process, I think is huge. Because, we can come up with the best tech in the world, but if the kid won't use it, it's useless. It's a great paperweight. Yeah, one of my best examples, I had a student years ago who was he would stutter and he would clutter. So everything got melded together and it was just so difficult for him to get his point across. And he was a high schooler and we got him a great AAC system and he was able to navigate it and it was terrific. But you know what? It was like this big. And he's like, it better fit in my pocket or I'm not using it. And that was hugely important to him. So having him a part of the process and the family too, they're like, yeah, that's kind of big, for us to take places. And he was a high schooler and cognitively typical, kind of high school kid. So we needed to listen to him and his family and then think about the technology, and could we then shrink it down to make it more accessible for him? So it's all about everyone getting in part of the process.
Does anyone in our chat or anyone want to unmic and share a story where, you know, a student just for whatever reason just wasn't going to use the assistive technology they found for them? Feel free to drop it in the chat or unmute, share with the group. Oop, I went too fast.
Just please remember that this is being recorded, so confidentiality is always high. So just don't use names.
Well, and I'm going to kind of go back to what I had mentioned earlier. So some of these strategies I'm going to share now, you might be thinking, when are we going to find the time to do this? We do not have the manpower or the staffing to initiate some of these strategies. And once again, I'm going to reiterate that I totally understand that. My hope that by sharing these strategies, that you could share them with administrators or board members, or the decision makers, or if you are the decision maker, then you can bring it to your team, right? And Jennifer says they happen all the time. Oh, they don't want to look different than their peers. Yeah, that peer pressure is a tough one, right? It is like it's definitely something, especially the age level, right? If it's high schoolers or middle schoolers, wow, that's got to be tough.
Frank, I can jump in real quick and just comment a little bit more on that. But one of the biggest successes we've had in our school district is really working with our technology department. And so one of the great things that has come out of that collaboration has been touchscreen Chromebooks for all students, which has become more of a universal. And by doing that, our students then have access to being able to pinch and zoom and some of those features that make them not feel and look different. And then, even when we've had, because Chromebooks have gotten so small, so that 11-inch screen isn't always, viewable, or fine motor wise is hard to access. So we've had to purchase some additional size computers. But again, the more we can make that technology look and feel like what their peers have, the greater success we have in getting students to utilize it.
Right. And not only even screens, but software, right? If they're using similar software to kind of that universally designed access, right? Then they don't feel like they're the only ones using a screen reader. They're the only ones using a website that kind of does an overlay to kind of shield the, kind of help their eyes see the letters, right? And so, and I think that goes back to educators too. If they're using a font that is kind of more legible, then that student doesn't have to change the way their slide deck is, or where their website is, right? Thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. I'm a huge fan of the touch screen Chromebooks, and I'm glad to hear other districts are utilizing them. And for that same reason, is I think, and I had the ones that were convertible, so you flip over into a kind of a tablet. And so, yeah, you could pinch the screen and then you could access some of the features and no one would know you're even using it differently. Oh, you do have those. Nice. So going back to how do we engage families, or what are some strategies to engage families, is according to the kind of the site's websites, this has a huge kind of multi pages of kind of, let's see, like how to engage families in leadership, how to engage them in infrastructure, teaching, learning, assessment. So it has a very in-depth way, and it provides resources, articles and other websites. So I've linked that in there as well. It'll come up on one of these other pages, but I've kind of scanned through and kind of picked out some of the, I felt, strategies that districts could be thinking about. But I think Jennifer brought up a great point, is involving that tech department in the assistive technology decisions is going to be huge as well. Amy put down in the chat, Kathy, you want to read that real quickly or comment on that?
Yeah, sure. Amy was talking about sometimes, we have parents who come in and they saw something and they're like, this is what I want. Or I remember I had a parent who was like, I want something that's going to, put an electrode on her, and she was dead serious. And she goes, so it will read her mind so it can do things. And I'm like, that'd be great, but that doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist in school. And again, we have to have a reason for providing the technology to make sure that it's appropriate for our goals. So, it's not magic, and I think some parents do want that kind of thing. They're looking for that magic pill. And that's why, again, I always want to go back to the research. We have to have research to back up what we're doing, to make sure that we've got trials, make sure we have data, and then we can kind of move on from there.
Well, and I, not only that, I think sometimes they hear stories of another family having access to something, and they don't get all the details, right? They don't get a true sense of what it is actually that child that they heard about has access to. And so then they just start saying, well, we want what we heard that child has. And they don't really truly know the actual technology that's being used in supporting that child. So I think there's some miscommunication or kind of misconception of what is actually being used around the school. So gathering data is a great way to engage families. When you're reaching out to them and asking what are their needs at home, what successes they're having at home, creating a focus group to see how much support is being or is able to be given at home. So if you're going to provide something that might need some support, but there's no support at home, then it's going to fail, right? And so having that focus group or figuring that out beforehand can kind of help with the decision making. I love this one. These next two, a support group for families that are struggling to help out at home or struggling with, kind of supporting that assistive technology in the home. This is my wife's new role, as she's a family support liaison for pediatric therapies. And I started thinking, wow, this would be a really cool way for districts, right? To kind of have that position or that role for someone on your team to be that liaison between the family and the school team, right? The IEP team or the AT team. So we talk about consistent, recurring, targeted, accessible communication, not just a blanket email that goes out to the entire maybe school community, because then it gets lost in the shuffle, but a kind of just an AT group communication that is monthly or bi-monthly, maybe a private social media group or a Slack channel that just kind of really keeps that line of communication open, right? A district-wide parent advisory board, and then also remembering that not every parent has time to read the research or likes listening to podcasts. So we have to have, even when we do it with students, we have the multiple means of representation. We have blogs, we have podcasts, we have PDFs. We have different ways of YouTube videos, right? So yeah, so Kathy, anything in the chat?
Yeah. So Amy was talking about that there's possibly like sometimes if you film a student, and I've done that before too, where if you get permission and stuff, you can show how well someone does with something. And sometimes when we've had those cultural issues that have come up, that's been really helpful, that the student can do, X, Y, and Z in school with the technology and to be so successful. So, yep, that is sometimes because some kids are not most accurate reporters. That is so true. I think it's like anything. We see what we want to see. We hear what we want to hear. And then I was also just adding into the chat, in case anyone's interested, is next month's community of practice, as we're talking about what Jennifer was saying about having your IT department involved. Dr. Robert Smiley from the School District of Janesville is going to talk to us about assistive tech and IT together for students. And that will be a huge presentation that will kind of bring all this stuff together. So I'll throw that in the chat.
Nice. Thank you, Kath. So then the site's website also talks about how we can engage families by training them well. And so having face-to-face trainings offered at various times of day in case parents can't make it, in the morning or after school, maybe online tutorials. I'm going to say I'm a huge advocate for short and sweet, 2 to 3 minutes max, published on the website, and they're easy to find. Create maybe even a AT parent portal where parents can log in, and then all the AT specific information and trainings and kind of research is right there, as opposed to trying to find it on the main website, right? Some districts have a tech support hotline, maybe using parent nights or subject related nights, math nights or STEAM nights or concerts to provide and give families that help they need to learn about how to support their child with these assistive technologies. There was an idea about finding community leaders who are willing to run family engagement groups to help parents support children using AT. In our last meeting, I learned that that Kathy and I were in earlier today, that someone's husband is an electrical engineer, and so is there someone in the community that is passionate about technology and would be willing to lead a community group to support the children and support the families? So all ideas, some more ideas. So then the site's website kind of gives some examples about the Hampton School District. So here we have kind of this district really focused on the empathy and the human-centered design, and really kind of made intentionality of training their teachers, all their teachers, on how to support and be involved with these decisions and kind of keep data and keep track of what's working and what's not working in the classroom. They also mentioned that this Hampton Township School District partnered with a community called a community center that also helped train parents and support students using assistive technology out in the community center. And then there's this awesome story about the Busy Bean Cafe, where the special ed department provided vocational experience and kind of a coffee shop experience during family nights and during activity nights it was Jennifer's husband. No, was that this Jennifer, right? Kathy, is that our Jennifer that's in this meeting too?
Yep,
Awesome.
that certainly is.
That's him. I gotta meet him. I'm a techie too, so I'm kind of like, I wonder what he. Oh, actually, I was hoping to get hold of you, Jennifer, because Union Grove does their tech department does something similar to what your husband wants to do in the take aparts. And I thought I could give him some ideas on what they do down there. So have him reach out to me if you can. The site's website also talks about student self-advocacy coaches. So engaging parents to shift that mindset. Yes, we want them to advocate for their child's needs, but we want them to kind of become eventually advocacy coaches. And so we want them to help give the students the resources and the research and the training so that the students can make their own determination and the students can kind of make their own decisions about what's working and not working. Because sometimes I think students feel a little pressured by their parents to if they see their parents advocating, sometimes the students will take that on to themselves and say, maybe I should use this because this is what my parents really want me to use. I don't know if anyone sees any of that happening. Kathy, any of that happening in your schools?
Well, I think not every kid, but I guess you can never do absolutes, but a lot of students do, want to, please their parents or, do what's right, and then you have kids on the other side who are going to buck the system every chance they can get. But I think it's all goes back to communication involving that student in that IEP process, asking those questions, what is your goal? When students say, hey, I want to go to tech school, and then we can go, great, let's look at what the barriers might be. Let's look at all your strengths. And then we can find the right technology and we can say, use this and this, you can do those things. So it's all about knowing your student, and knowing your family.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine maybe younger students, I'm thinking younger students are more of like maybe the parent pleasers. But yeah, I was a middle schooler teacher for 24 years. So yeah, I can't imagine them always wanting to please their parents. But Jennifer brings up a point about student-led IEPs would be perfect for this self-advocacy, right? So getting back to what Kathy said, engaging parents with data-driven decisions, right? And Stacy actually added something here is that, I kind of mentioned that assessments aren't going away anytime soon, right? And as much as I don't like standardized testing and certain types of assessment, but how do we get insight from parents about performance data in the hands of the parents before the testing cycle, right? So if we could do this and then we could have it written into the IEP, then you may not have to, we can maybe eliminate some of those test barriers beforehand, right? And I know we can't just change it for the test unless it's an everyday AT device that they need for classes and for their everyday living. It can't just be something for a test. But this is what kind of Harsha's story, this link here, basically talks about a student who, kind of like what you said, Kathy, spent all their energy on the test because they weren't utilizing a tool that could have helped them. It was actually a Braille tool. They were having it text to speech, and they were having, I think, a magnifying glass, a magnifier on the screen, but it was just exhausting. And so then they had no energy left for the rest of the night, and their other needs, they went home and they couldn't go to their, I think it was their choir practice. They couldn't go to their sporting event because they were just wiped out from that test. Empowering parents with that data I think it will also build an alliance, right? And so sometimes we have pushback from parents or we have parents doubting the school system. But by empowering them with that data and that research, like Kathy mentioned earlier, and helping like them make those decisions, now it seems more like a partnership. And I think they'll be less hostile towards the districts. Granted, I know there's some parents that you're never going to please, right? I get that, but I think the more empowerment we give them and the more relationship we build with them and work on it as a team, the less likely they're going to be able to turn on us.